Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video together. A sunbathing baby dog and Mama Nicola in the garden. And I just said to Paul that this existence is a roller coaster. It is an emotional roller coaster. That's what this existence is. It's not easy at all. But we're pulling through this, plowing through life. So it's always important to feel gratitude for what we have and use what we have, utilize what we have available, and think things through in contemplation and mindfulness and meditation. Not do anything in a rush or in some kind of emotional upheaval, but do everything in precision and do things planned, think about the consequences, make the best out of everything, the best out of all situations. If I was president, I would not have allowed a strike in Iran. That's where I stand. That doesn't turn me against Donald Trump. Maybe they are seeing through things that I don't have any information about or cannot see through. So maybe they know what they're doing, and so far that's what I'm thinking of Donald Trump, that he knows what he's doing with whatever he's doing. But if I was president, I would not do a strike in a sovereign country. But I think we should talk about this. I think we should all think about this and talk about this and bring stuff together. And you can say whatever you want to say under my video. You can also come from a religious point of view. I don't care. But if you come from a religious point of view, I will remind you that you are coming from a religious point of view, from an indoctrinated point of view. But if you come from thinking this through and coming from ethics and universal love, okay, then I will agree with you and say, yeah, we have to apply universal love, okay? We have to always plan and do things according to the infinite cosmos, and that is love. Love and peace and kindness. That is the basics of existence. There could be, let's say there is something happening at CERN in Switzerland, okay? They're doing an experiment with subatomic particles that they're smashing together at high speed. And suddenly a new element has formed, and maybe it only formed for a few seconds and then it falls apart. But what if they create a new element and then this element somehow creates a portal? Like that guy, Jordan Crowder, I think is his name. He was just explaining that on X, which is a really wild story that he told about. There is a portal rock in South America, and someone went there and put his head on that rock and meditated on it. In that particular portal rock door. And the other people saw him become crystalline, like it was like glowing, transparent, the whole body. And then he disappeared into the portal. I believe it. I know most people would not believe it, but I actually believe it. And people can laugh about me all they want, and say, oh, you believe everything and anything, right? No, I don't. I don't believe propaganda lies, okay? But this here is not a propaganda lie, okay? This is a very wild story. I believe that existence is wild beyond your wildest dreams. People have no idea what is happening in existence and what kind of forces are playing themselves out. They have no idea. They cannot possibly wrap their minds around it. What is happening in the quantum realm, in the ether. Okay, so there's infinite stuff happening in the ether. Infinite wild stuff is going on. Okay, that's the truth. That is what I'm coming to believe now. Because I've seen it also. I've seen stuff. I've seen the most amazing things. Your prayer, if it is a real, deep, heartfelt prayer that comes from a mind state of total surrender. I mean really total surrender. Not some kind of entitlement. Not like a prayer that is like please mommy buy me 10 chocolates. 'Cause I want it now. So no, that's not the prayer I'm talking about. I'm talking about a prayer that is where you are absolutely on the ground. And that's, by the way, why a lot of those Middle Eastern religions have people bow themselves all the way down to the ground and put their forehead on the ground. It is a gesture of surrender. So I see where this comes from originally, right? But the people that are putting their head on the ground in this particular ritual, they are not surrendered. Okay, so when it becomes a religion, when it becomes a ritual, when it becomes something that everyone else does too, then where is the surrender then? The surrender falls off the wayside along the way, right? So then it's just another ritual, another religion, another belief system, another tradition. It becomes a mental illness. It becomes like one becomes enslaved to the religion, which is a mental illness. There's no difference between a mental illness made up type of belief, like a schizophrenic type of belief, that whatever people come up with, okay, whatever fears mix in and they create some kind of story and they think that whatever is, they think there is a witch and or she can whatever. I can never step on a crack between two bricks or something, and then the witch would put a spell on me and turn me into an elephant or something, or transform me into a pig, right? So I'm making this up now, but there's all kinds of wild beliefs that some schizophrenic people can come up with. And then they create a ritual in order to ward off this possibility of this witch, or the interpretation of someone having such supernatural powers, when that's probably not even the case. But a schizophrenic person will interpret that something like this into other people, or believe all kinds of things, So, and religions make this much worse, the schizophrenia, much, much worse. So, but there's no difference between my self-made OCD ritual and this bowing down of Islam, the forehead on the ground and bowing down and to all directions and following the sun or worshipping the sun or doing all kinds of weird bending body out of shape rituals, totally enslaved to. Yes, you agree with me, absolutely 100%. A raven just flew over me and he said, I agree with you, this is all bullshit what these people are doing. Yes, that's the truth. Yes, that is. See, the raven agrees, because the raven is bird free, literally. The raven does what his nature demands him to do. Okay, that's the will to power. The will to power is the opposite of being religiously enslaved to a religious ritual or an OCD ritual. So there's no difference between the OCD ritual, which may come from something a schizophrenic person completely makes up, or even makes it a whole new religion out of it, right? Or just has it for themselves, this type of crazy fear or belief. There's no difference between that and being enslaved to a religion where thousands of people do the same ritual. There's no difference. No difference in practice. The only difference is one is practiced by thousands or millions, and the other one just by one homeless schizoid person on the street, right? So the only difference. But it's the same mechanism, exactly the same mechanism. Being enslaved to a belief system, whether that is believed by thousands of others or just by myself, made up, or I just created that on the whim, as they say, so just my brain just associating wildly. I had a long-term boyfriend in Germany who was schizophrenic, and he said his brain is constantly associating. So he was completely to the mercy of this brain that was perpetually associating. It's a very inflamed mental state that he was in. Horrible, horrific. It must have been hell, absolute hell. And he didn't even accept this identity anymore. He would leave his backpack behind, and I would have to pick up his backpack. He had no more sense with reality at all. He would buy a train ticket and then tear it in pieces. It was really hellish, and I suffered from this whole situation with him being crazy like this. It was hellish for me too, because it brought up all kinds of my own fears. It was like catastrophe. That's what it was. It was catastrophic. I cannot say it any other way, but all of these things are shaping us into becoming more knowledgeable and more aware about certain things. So I will never engage with a schizoid person again. Never again. I can't put myself into that kind of danger where my heart will be broken and where I have to constantly be on guard, and where catastrophes happen, okay, or the person can suddenly do something very dangerous. The last night we spent together there at my parents' house, I had to tell him, please don't hurt me when I'm falling asleep. And he said, I won't. And then he got up a couple of hours later. His mind was so unrestful that he couldn't sleep. And when people can't sleep anymore properly, then the mental illness takes on another form. It gets worse. It's like a brain inflammation. And he got up and I had a cookie jar there that was a bunch of stuff in it, and necklaces and perfume oils. And he closed the lid on it, and then he slammed his fist on it, saying, what's inside of that cookie jar, that is his life. That's his whole life is inside of that cookie jar, and he has to slam his fist on it, putting a big dent into it, because he wanted to express his anger, I guess, towards his life. And then and my brother was sitting up in his bed, totally on guard and afraid, in the other room, because he knew what was going on. And I was nervous and afraid, and I was starting to get angry, which is not good at all. Okay. And then I fell asleep again, and he was still up. He took that cookie jar. My parents were eating breakfast in the kitchen. He went in the kitchen while I was still sleeping, and he opened that cookie jar in front of my parents as they were eating their breakfast. And he put his hand into the cookie jar and just stirred the stuff up in there. And then he said to them, this is my life. My life is all of these contents in this cookie jar. And then he closed the lid and he said, this is my life. Everything is locked up. This cookie jar is my life. Everything is completely boxed up and locked up. And instead of seeing this as alarm, my dad said, wow, that was deep. That was so deeply philosophical, when it wasn't. It was a psychotic episode. That's what it was. And I guess my mother was not as enthusiastic about this, because my mother has more intuition, but my dad, he thinks in terms of artisticness at all times. When in the past I made a doll out of bed sheets, and I hung that up on a shrine, as a crucifixion shrine. That was a long time ago. My dad would come in and say, this is so artistic. Let's do an art performance. My mother would come in with a very concerned look on her face. That is the difference between them. But anyway, I finally got up, and then my parents told me what happened, and Norbert finally left, went back home. 2 hours later, his mother calls up, talks to my dad in his office, calling my dad's office, crying, saying Norbert is completely crazy. He is naked and he is about to go outside. It was deep freezing outside. It was in the middle of winter. He is naked and he's about to go outside with his guitar around his neck, naked. He would freeze to death. And she was crying in total despair, and she could not protect him. And I guess, but she and her husband, they barely managed to keep him in the house and lock the door or something. And my dad said, I will call the psychiatrist that I was already going to. I will call him and I will get you an emergency appointment. And he did, and Dr. Sasse was waiting for us, and they got Norbert into the mother's car. They came over, picked me up, so that I could show them where the office is. We went to the office while we were waiting in the waiting room. This is not funny at all, but it is incredibly. It's like universal humor when you look at it in retrospect. So we're sitting in the waiting room. I am extremely mad. That is my reaction. That's my neurological reaction to his mental illness, which is obviously not very professional. Okay, I'm just I'm completely useless in terms of helping him in a psychological way. But we're sitting in the waiting room. I have a pissed look on my face. He sits there with this tension. I just know it's just a matter of time until something terrible happens. He gets up and he takes the vase that has flowers in it and everything. Takes that vase. I forgot now that I don't think there was water in it, luckily. He takes that vase with the flowers and wraps it into newspaper. Then we try to stop him from doing this. And then he gets up and he goes to the door about to leave that office, just the waiting room. And he says, and I wish all of you a great fall. Fall meaning falling down into the abyss. Because that was a projection, because he was the one falling. And we just barely got him to stay. And his dad tried to grab him by the sweater, and he was so fierce. He was pulling his head through the sweater out of the grip of his dad. But then we screamed and called the other people, the assistants, and they're already very well equipped in those kind of situations. And they came over and quickly closed the door so that he can't escape. And we got him to calm down, and then the doctor had to quickly let us into his office. And the mother told the whole story. And Norbert said a bunch of very obscene things. It's all in this psychotic episode. And then the doctor said, I'm prescribing you the admission to psychiatric hospital that's at the outskirts of the town. And the mother cries again, sobbing, and says, I already have a son there, permanently. So this must have been absolutely hell for her. And on the way to the clinic, I went with them. She was crying while she was driving. I tried to comfort her, and she said, what have I done wrong with my children, that they both end up in that insane asylum? And I tried to comfort her and said, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just a psychiatric disorder. But then later on, I wasn't so sure. Maybe, I didn't see the whole picture. Maybe she has done things wrong. Okay. And the children just couldn't cope with it, with her behavior. So now I'm getting a little chilly here now. But all of this is very bizarre, to say the least. It's very bizarre. I gotta sit up. I'm getting too cold here on the ground. So, yes, chicken. Oh, it's getting chilly. Yes, it's a little bit chilly. So, in the sun it's nicer. It's nicer. Yes, it is nice in the sun, baby dog. That feels so good. Yes. Oh yeah, that feels so good. But then the sun is on my skin, and that wouldn't work either. So I want the sun to be on my body, but not in my face. How do I do this? I don't know. It's not gonna work either. None of this here. This is not working very well. But anyway, the world is weird, okay, to say the least. The world is very, very weird. And that's the truth. That's the total truth. This is a bizarre, bizarre world that we live in. But whether strange things happen or not, okay, there's one thing that is always the truth. That's why Jiddu Krishnamurti separated between reality and truth. Truth is something that is, no matter in which dimension you live, or in which headset reality you are living, or whether CERN Switzerland has created a portal or created an entirely new universe or existence or reality, realm, right? So, or new headset reality. I think that what that Jordan Crowder was talking about is they didn't create that. They tapped into it. That's what happened. They tapped into these scientists, apparently, according to what that guy said that went into that portal in South America. He came back and he said he was told that there were scientists that had created in a laboratory like CERN. They created another universe, but what it really was is a portal to another dimension, to another universe. That's what they created, and this portal grew. This universe grew. I don't know. It's just so difficult to even possibly understand it, what it really was. But that is the universe that gave rise to this existence here. And they said you're from that other existence, and we're in the creator realm. We're in that realm where the scientists created your universe, your existence. And they said that there are scientists that have created their universe as well. And now there are scientists in our universe that are creating yet another universe, another portal, and it's about to happen. It's going to happen at some point. That we are creating through the experiments at CERN, Switzerland, in the nuclear collider, that we're creating, not we, I would never do something like this, but the scientists are creating, they're playing with fire, they're creating another dimension there. They're creating a portal or something. And that can take over and swallow up everything and then create another entire parallel universe. But I don't think that's creating it. I think it's just a portal. That's what it seems like to me. They're tapping into something. So there are endless dimensions. And if you tap into one dimension, you can see that dimension. You go through a portal, get into that dimension, and see what it's like in that other dimension. Right? But then you can come back. And they said they created these portal historical sites around planet Earth. There are many of those sites with a portal like this. And you can see it if you study ancient architecture. You see megalithic blocks built into also blocks in front of actual rock formations, natural rock formations, or portal doors that are carved into a natural rock formation that already exists. I've seen that numerous times now when I watch ancient architecture documentaries. Numerous times around this is happening all over the planet. There are those doors that just have rock inside. There's a rock wall inside. It's a rock wall, and then there's a frame around it. A very elaborate frame built in front of this rock slate. And they say that's the portal. Okay, so if you meditate in that rock frame, and if you totally surrender, just like if you do a prayer, that's why I said when you do a real heartfelt prayer, you have to be completely surrendered. Completely surrendered. That means there cannot be any agenda in your head. You have to be 100% surrendered to the now moment. Most people cannot do it. Most people are not in the mental shape to get themselves into that mental state. If you really surrender, here's how most people would find themselves in for a minute in a state of total surrender is when there's a beautiful swallow bird, when they experience a total catastrophe and they are hitting rock bottom, when they're on their deathbed, or when their family died, or when well, if something catastrophic happens that completely knocks them out of their daily life and the comforts of their daily life. So when there's no more comfort, when there is no more hope in a situation like that, when they lost their home or their home burned down, they have nothing, they're on the street. That's when most people will have a moment of total surrender. There is a psychologist, Elisabeth Kübler-Ross is her name, and she talks about the different stages of mind that most people go through when they're on their deathbed. Particularly those people that have received a death sentence from a physician. I don't believe any of that. So, but I am not the norm. So most people, if someone gave me a death sentence, I would say, no way. I'm gonna fix myself because I can. Okay. So, and I have already. I fixed myself with bentonite. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here anymore talking on this video. So, but most people are so easily indoctrinated by the pharma industry, by the medical industry, by religion, by society. If just enough people tell them the world is this way and not this way, they will accept it. They will not question it. And that's why there are wars, because people don't question things. That's why. Not questioning things is dangerous, not just for themselves, but for the whole world. Okay? That's why I have a lot of issues with that. That's why I get mad when I see blind faith in the world. Makes me very mad. Muslims that will accept a violent religion, no matter what the religion says. If the religion says that it's okay to rape a 9-year-old girl, then they will be okay with it. The women too will be okay with it because it's their religion. Dang, man, this is dangerous. Don't you think so? Yeah, just because the fucking religion told you that? So some assholes that are brainwashed told you that, to brainwash you? That's dangerous. You need to question this. That's not love. That's not universal love, to follow blindly a religion. That's horror. That's what it is. And we have the human trafficking industry, which apparently is the industry that is dealing with trillions and maybe quadrillions. Okay? Just want to make this very crystal clear. That is the industry, I can clearly see it, that is towering over the military, or even over the drug industry, even over the pharma industry. That's how big the trafficking industry is. Okay. Now we understand what kind of bribe money is thrown around. Okay. Bribe money is thrown around. They start low, right? Some people kill for $1. But some people will oh no, this is unethical, I can't do this. But offered enough money, oh, let me think about it. Oh no, I can't do this for $1 million. No, it's unethical. Oh, let's see if it's still unethical if I offer you $1 billion. Okay? That's what Rockefeller was talking about. As long as the human ape is greedy, and that's what greed is. Greed is not the will to power. Greed is not, that's often jumbled up, and I've seen Esther Hicks jumble that up. Okay, don't do that. Esther Hicks, you know what greed is. You know, don't you? You know it. I love you, but you know what greed is. I'm sorry, Esther Hicks, but you have greed. Okay. Not in that proportion that I'm talking about here, but you have greed, and I've seen a lot of greedy people, and I love them, I care about them, but we don't hang out with them. That's why we don't have friends, because almost everyone is greedy. Right? So it's a treasure to find someone who's not greedy. But as long as most people are greedy, and greed, what I mean by that is when they do something to gain money or power on cost of others. That's what greed is. Greed is not if I want more and more and more money and I enjoy making more and more and more money, as long as it's not on cost of others, that's not greed. That's the will to power. That's the will to abundance and wealth. Okay, we have the right to that. Absolutely, we have the right to abundance. Everyone has the right to abundance and the right to this, to practicing your will to power, as long as it doesn't hurt another living being. Okay. Anyone who's involved with the trafficking industry in one way or another, maybe you are working for them as a toilet cleaner and you find out, dang, I work for traffickers. In that very moment, if you want to take the ethical route, you stop working for them. That's all there is to it. You don't work for them anymore. You don't work for them. You don't help them. You walk away. In regards to Iran is run by extreme criminals. That is obvious, okay? Those are trafficking, they're big in all of this. Involved with trafficking, with drug, with horror, okay? And their shit religion justifies it. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why religion is so dangerous. That's why when people don't question, they make the world suffer. That's what they do. Absolutely. So we have to question, we have no other choice. When you are completely free, you do not get psychotic. The reason why Norbert became psychotic is because he wasn't free. I didn't understand any of that at that time. When I was 25, okay, that's when that happened, and he was 26. I just knew that I was just angry, and I didn't even quite understand why I was so angry at him. I could have punched him, but he's mentally ill. He was suffering. And the people that are not questioning things, they're mentally ill too. The people that sold their daughter, the McCanns, they sold their child to David Payne, a doctor friend of theirs. These people were already involved with the trafficking industry. These people, for years already. For money. I have terrible hatred for this pathology. But then at the sky perspective, I realize it's a pathology. Greed is a pathology. Greed is a form of mental illness. This one form of mental illness. And I've seen it in very pathological ways with people. I've seen greedy people that use their greed against themselves. That happens too. It's a mental illness. It's all bizarre, said. But none of that is love. Okay? When we stick with universal love, the infinite cosmos love, the real love is total surrender. Total surrender to the now moment, to that what you have, to that what's there, to your feelings that you have in that very moment. Okay? Total surrender to it. If I'm jealous, I'm jealous. I'm not able to make myself unjealous. If I'm jealous in that moment, this is like a block of mountain. You can't undo that mountain. If you're jealous in that moment, it's there. You cannot take a magic wand and make it disappear. You can't, okay? You have to sit with that mountain. You have to sit with that jealousy. Or if it's anger, you sit with that anger, okay? And you can talk it out. Write it down and cry it out, okay? Once the tears flow, that is the moment of absolute, complete rock bottom release of tension and resistance. That is the moment of total surrender. Okay. The moment, that's what all the yogis are talking about. That's what Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about. There is no more thought then. When you're in that moment of total surrender to that what is. To the imperfections in the world, the wars and all of that. You sit with it in total surrender, not in a resistance, not like, I must do something to change the world. No. You sit with it in total surrender. After that, long after that, after you cried it all out, then you can contemplate on, now, how do we strategically go about making the world a better place? Okay. Then we can do it. Because then we can do it from a mind state of freedom. Okay. After going through the total surrender, you come out the other end. I call it the ego dissolution funnel. Okay. You come out the other end where you are free, where you're completely bird free, like the birds here. Yeah. Completely free. There's no more jealousy, no more anger, no more rage, no more coveting, no more trying to own someone or revenge or any of these things. Then you are in a state of universal love. Okay? And that's what we're aiming toward. That's what we all want to heal into. Okay? That's the healing process. That is what it is. That's what my life is all about. It's this healing process. I am healing into total mental freedom. So, let's do it. Okay? Heal into total mental freedom. Peace and love for all.